Hey, what's up, y'all? This is William, the permaculture consultant, and today we are taking down the Florida weave. And no, I'm not talking about your sister's hair. I'm talking about the method of growing tomatoes. We are going to be putting in stakes instead of the Florida weave, and we'll get into it. But remember, if you need any permaculture Q&A questions answered, then leave them down below in the comment section. If you need any consultations, then hit up the description down below. And if you want to go to a Homestead meetup, then hit the description down below as well. It's going to be, I think, next weekend, June 8th. There's also an email sign-up list down below if you want to be notified about them in the future. Let's get into the video. Now, the big issue with this Florida weave method is that my wind blows that way most of the time, and all of my tomatoes are laying over that way. So this Florida weave method that you can see right here isn't that effective if you're in windy areas. Apparently, like, all of my tomatoes for the most part are all laid over here. So these tomatoes over here were extras that I had whenever I did the Florida weave method the first time, and they started off staked out and they're doing just fine. So the stakes are working in this area, just the Florida weave method is not. The issue is that it's not holding the tomato upright. Like, when it blows, the wind blows, it'll just slide over to the side, and then, you know, kind of defeats the purpose of having these strings on the other side. And once they all start falling over to one side, once they start sliding, then that much weight starts, you know, lowering the string. As you can see, this one is super low compared to this one because they're all resting on this one. So that's the issue with it right now. If I weren't in a tornado alley, then it probably wouldn't be an issue. But for here where I am, it's too windy to do the Florida method. So now what I'm gonna go ahead and do is go ahead and stake all of these tomatoes. Now there's two issues right there. A, those tomato stakes, I don't know if anybody's bought them lately, but holy crap, they are expensive. And the second issue is that even if I did want to buy them, none of them have any of them available because everybody has them for their own tomatoes this season. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and harvest my own tomato stakes. So to make my own tomato stakes, what I'm gonna do, thin out some of these mimosa branches. I have like so many mimosa branches. In fact, we're gonna go over here where it's super shaded back here. I can harvest a couple of mimosa branches without even, just walk right into a spider web. I can harvest a couple of mimosa branches without even doing any damage to the shade. Like, there's still gonna be way more shade than needed over in this area. And I'm just using this here, what is it? Wicked Tree Gear handsaw. It's pretty handy. It seems to be just about as good as a silky saw. So, but like way cheaper. And I'm gonna do an undercut just so that way it doesn't rip off any bark below this cut. And then do my regular cut. There we go. Now I can get quite a few tomato stakes out of this. This one section is so thick I might be able to actually split it and get two tomato stakes out of the same section. So we'll go ahead and plan for that. I'm just eyeballing it, what seems to be appropriate. So these branches right here are what we're going to start with, and I'm just going to take my pocket knife, and since it's summer right now, or almost summer, it's going to be really easy to do this, but we're going to peel off the bark. This is going to help it dry out, and it's going to make sure that the stake lasts longer than just this one season. Hopefully it lasts a little bit longer and we can use it again maybe next year, or I can just do this whole process again. Mimosas grow pretty fast. All this rain, this stuff is so wet and juicy, I don't even need to use the pocket knife to even get this stuff started. It's like there's a water layer between the bark and the actual hardwood. You can do this with other trees if you want to. It's just I have an abundance of mimosas on this property, and like I just said, they grow pretty doggone fast. So that's why I'm kind of going with these. After this, I'll take it over to the axe stand and I'll chop some points into the ends of these stakes, and then I'll also split this one in half probably. You can do the whole thing with the knife if you don't want to get your hands all sappy. This is the Spyderco Mannix 2 for anybody who's wondering. Alrighty, so this one I'm gonna go ahead and try to split. I just have it resting on there like that, and I pick it all up together, drop it. Pick it all up together, drop it. Or you can take a rubber mallet and just get it started that way. And there we go. So that's realistically like 2 steaks out of 1 piece. I could even quarter this, which I think I will go ahead and do that. There we go. Just because it didn't split perfectly in half and it left one side quite a bit thicker. There we go. That's 3 pieces out of that 1 round earlier. Now from here, I'm just going to sharpen the ends. That way I have a nice sharp point there. Alrighty, so the next thing we're gonna do is go ahead and take down the old Florida weave. Got my little rubber mallet right here to pound those steaks in. I got this at an estate sale. I think it was $2. I can't remember. Can't talk. The ticket is gone, but I think this thing was $2. Anyways, estate sales are pretty awesome unless they're not. They're either really, really cool or they're just really, really crap. Now remember guys, believe it or not, if you know more knots, I know Dad makes videos over at Permaculture's farm. If you haven't checked him out, check him out. But he makes videos all the time about talking about knots. Cool thing about knots is if you know knots, you waste a lot less rope. I'm going to start by just pounding the stakes in right next to the tomatoes, and then I'll come back through and tie these guys on. Now tying them up from here is pretty straightforward. I'm going to take some of that previous 550 cord that I took and I'm going to pull the filaments out of it just like that, and there we go. I have, it should be 5 different strings, but in this case I have 7 different strings within that little casing right there. Tying them to the post is pretty straightforward, but after I get this tied off, I'm then going to start pruning these guys back. Now that this thing is tied off, now we're going to go through and prune any of the suckers. We're also going to prune, this rosemary is kind of in the way. We're also going to prune any super low branches because we want this thing to get plenty of air. So anything below my first blossom or anything like that, I'm just going to prune off. There's a sucker back in there. I don't know if you guys can see that. Where's my knife? There we go. That part just came off. And any other low pieces. Now the suckers that you pull off, you can actually stick in some potting soil and get them to root if you wanted to. That way you can get more tomato plants. So there we go. Any more? This is my first fruiting body right here, and I'm going to prune everything below that. Want to make sure your plant isn't putting any effort into growing suckers because suckers don't produce food. So I'm going to go through and do that to all of the rest of the tomatoes. Alrighty, so now I got all the tomatoes staked up and everything, and I even have some of these peppers, or at least the ones that have survived my pruning. I got most of those staked up as well. Now that I've got this done, I'm actually going to go ahead and cut this bed down. This was the bed of the sunflowers right here, you can see here, but they just keep knocking over. The high winds are pretty bad coming through here, and most of them just fall right over. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut these down. I'm gonna harvest the sunflowers that are, you know, pretty. I'll bring those back to Emily and the baby. Side note, the baby loves flowers. She just loves staring at the flowers. So I'll bring those back to them. And then the rest I'm going to chop and then leave over here in my composting area, and I'll use those for future that stuff for future compost ingredients. So let's go ahead and get to it. There we go. There's a nice little bunch right there. There's still a couple more to harvest. Now that I got the sunflowers I'm going to use out of the way, I'm going to go through and chop everything out of here. Actually, Instead of composting this stuff, what I'm actually gonna do, because I'm noticing that the soil is kind of bare, what I'm gonna do is lay this stuff back on top and let it decompose in place. Look at that. Look at that. Nice little worm right there. Put him right there in the middle. Let him have fun. Oh, there's his little buddy right next to him. Look at that. Put him in the bed too. Oh, by the way, this is a rice knife. If you don't know about them, they're awesome. If you want one, hit up Permapastures Farm. There's some on their website, I believe. Check this out. This is a little mushroom that was growing in my garden. I have no idea what it is. I'm not about to eat it, but I do think it's interesting. Alrighty, so there we go. Got all the tomatoes staked. You can see them all the way down there, all those stakes sticking up out of the ground. So I don't know that the Florida weave method doesn't work, or if it just doesn't work in high wind areas. So if you're thinking about doing the Florida weave and you live in a windy area, maybe don't do it and just stick to the stakes for now. And then we also got this sunflower bed cleared. I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to put in yet, but I'm definitely going to replace the sunflowers with something. We'll have to see what's available, see what it's good for and all that type of stuff, or see what the time is good for and all that type of stuff. So if you guys have any permaculture Q&A questions, leave them down below in the comments. If you want to come to the homesteading meetup, that's June 8th. All the details are linked down below. Also, if you need any consultations, then hit up the description down below. Until next time, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you.